Welcome to Second Opinion. I'm Rosemarie, and if you've ever wanted a second opinion on some of the trending topics in health and wellness, you are in the right place. Each episode, I sit down with experts, innovators, and even a few disruptors to bring you fresh perspectives on the issues that could change your life, from age rejuvenation and brain health to the weight loss drug revolution and how to reinvent your career. Together, we'll dig into the latest research, question what's hype and what's real, and give you the insight you need to make your own choices about health and wellness. So, if you're ready for a second opinion that's engaging, enlightening, and maybe even a little unexpected, let's get started. Today's episode dives into a simple but potentially life-altering truth. A second opinion can be life-saving, whether it's a misdiagnosis, a missed opportunity, or just a gut feeling that something isn't quite right. Getting another perspective can make all the difference. Our guest is someone who knows this deeply. Dr. Paula Sauer is a physical therapist, educator, patient advocate, a former tech founder, a Pilates instructor, and a global lecturer on everything from injury prevention to anatomy and therapeutics. After building and selling a thriving practice in Los Angeles during the height of 2020, Paula moved to Switzerland, where she continues her work helping people reconnect with their bodies, their breath, and their own healing instincts. She's a passionate voice for empowering patients because she's seen firsthand how powerful it can be to ask questions, dig deeper, and advocate for yourself. So whether you're navigating your own health journey or supporting someone else's, this conversation is an intended reminder. Trust your body and don't be afraid to ask for a second opinion.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. So full disclosure, I found Paula. I was doing some research. It was kind of interesting. I was doing some research, but I think clearly the algorithms know my topics of interest because Paula popped up, and her Instagram post was, I mean, it's really in alignment with the whole theme of this show, right? Second opinion. And she comes up on my screen and she says, are you one of those patients who thinks that your doctor is God? And I said, who is this woman? Right. And so I immediately was like, I had to learn more. And I thought I was looking into, to wrap up season 1, why I chose this as a name for this podcast. So this is actually very serendipitous because I found you, and it's like you don't know what you're looking for until you find it, and then you popped up on my screen. So what was the inspiration behind that post?
It's twofold. I work in Switzerland. So we've got a lot of older people here. We have a large, thriving older population. The typical lifespan here goes well past 80. A lot of my patients are in their late 80s into their 90s. I have some patients that live alone still and are 97 years old. Like the quality of life is really good. But with that comes old kind of mindset, which is the older generation of thinking, they're patient of a doctor. You don't ever second guess what the doctor says, even if they dismiss what it is you're saying or misdiagnose you or give you the wrong medication. Nope, you don't question it. You accept it. And you just carry on. And I am floored by this because as a physical therapist, a large part of what we do, besides getting people to move better, is we educate people and we help patients advocate for themselves. And so I did this in the United States a lot. And now in Switzerland, I do it for all of my patients here. I teach them how to really grab the attention of their doctor and show them the importance of advocating for themselves. I have so many examples of this, but a lot of these older people, they're just like, no, it's because my doctor said so. That's it. I'm like, but they miss a lot of your symptoms, a lot of them. So we're in the United States, physical therapists, we have a doctor title, but we're trained to screen a lot of things medically because there is an extreme shortage of healthcare workers globally. right? This is a global problem. There's not enough people to do the work that we do. You know this, Rosemarie, you know this. There's just not enough doctors, nurses, and physical therapists, occupational therapists, you name it, there's not enough. And you have a shortage. So in the United States, what they wanted to do is kind of elevate certain professions, give them doctor titles, but really give them a lot more medical training so that we could act as a primary care physician or in that role so that we can be that, that first point of contact with patient care, because there's just not enough doctors for a patient to go see a doctor and then come to a physical therapist. And now they have things like direct access in the United States where people go to the physical therapist first. And we have to screen, are they appropriate for this? So our training is really exceptional. And here in Switzerland, it's not so. It's really not even a bachelor's degree for a physical therapist here. The education level is much lower. So that the PTs here, they don't do the medical screening that I do. And for me, it's ingrained in me. I've been doing it for 20 years. I go through tons of questioning and checks and measures. And I'm like, this is not an orthopedic issue. This is something else. So I catch errors all. So this is why, I made that post because I hear it every day. And it's like, do you think your doctor is God? It's like, they're just a person. I want to humanize the experience. Doctors are wonderful. I love any doctor that I've ever had the experience meeting, even if they're arrogant with what they do, I still have this adoration for them because what they've gone through their training. But I don't put them on this pedestal that they're God. I just put them on a pedestal of they're an exceptional professional that helps save lives, but they're also a human being. We all miss things sometimes.
I'm glad you're saying that too, because they don't work in a silo, right? They've got teams around them, right? So it's like you've got nurses, therapists, multiple specialties in the room. So I feel like you as a therapist, talking about second opinion and you see a lot of disconnect where the system is broken. We're not bashing. This is not about, we're trying to shed light on some of the things that we see and why it's so important to ask questions.
Yeah. And really, so this is the thing. So when most people go to the doctor for the first time, they don't actually share what's actually wrong with them. Usually it's the second thing they say. The first thing they say is something else. And this is also this is where the communication starts to break down, is the first 30 seconds when the doctor enters the room and the patient is nervous and they might come in because they've got back pain. They are either shy or there's shame or there's guilt or they don't want it. There's so many emotional, psychological things happening in that moment for that patient. And they might go, well, I have a little tickle in my throat. They don't talk about their back at all. This is an example. Or they might go, I have a little bit of pain in my back. But they have unrelenting, stabbing, horrible shooting pain when they sleep. And they don't say this to the doctor. They just go, I have a little pain in my back. And we have to start with educating people that you're supposed to complain to your healthcare worker. You're supposed to do a data dump. This is everything that's wrong. Here's my laundry list of things that are really hurting in my body, or I don't feel well, or I don't feel this. So it needs to start there, that the patient feels empowered to actually tell not the truth, but not to feel shame or guilt and just really say what it is they're experiencing. And the doctor, the statistics are what? In the first 30 seconds, the doctor has diagnosed you. So if you don't say what's really bothering you from the beginning, the doctor's already ready, in their brain going, okay, run these tests and do this. Okay, boom. And this is where this dismissiveness can come into play, where a patient can feel dismissed. But are they being dismissed when they haven't actually even revealed what their problem is yet? So this is why I don't want to pass blame on doctors being dismissive. Now, I will say some doctors can be dismissive. That is a reality that happens. So only once in my life felt like that, and I advocated for myself on the spot. I was in a doctor's office with my father. I sent my dad out of the room because I didn't want him to hear how mean I was going to get with the doctor. I sent my dad out of the room. And then I said to the doctor, I said, how dare you not listen to me? Your job is to listen to what's wrong with me. That's your job. And then from there, you can make an assessment of what's wrong with me, but you're not listening to me. And he stopped and he apologized. And then we started over. It got his attention. It turned into a very positive experience. And that's what can happen when you advocate for yourself. Not yelling at the doctor, but you're saying, just like you would if you're communicating to a partner, I don't feel heard. Here's what is wrong. And this is what we need to empower people with. So the second opinion is also of that nature. You don't feel like you got the right diagnosis from that doctor. Something doesn't feel right. There's this gut feeling like, I don't know, something about this feels wrong. Listen to that voice. This is always right.
A lot of doctors, and I think because we both work with them in the OR setting, we're so crunched for time, and that is not any fault of the healthcare worker per se, or the medical professional, because you might be seeing 30, 40 patients a day outside of, say when you're operating. So you're under time constraints. You're trying to see everybody. You're trying to, people's needs the best that you can in a short period of time.
Doctors have no time to spend with this patient. So this is why it's easy to go, well, the doctor made the mistakes. Well, the doctor is under an extreme amount of pressure. Not only do they have the 4 minutes with this patient, then they also have to document everything. And, this is a time suck. They talk about it in TV shows all the time and make fun of it because it's a real problem. And anyone working in healthcare knows, the documentation part of it is just outrageous. And when you're working with, say, Medicare or any kind of government agency, then they ask you for all of these things to do. And it's do you want me to treat the patient or do you want me to just keep filling out these forms? Whose fault is it? It's nobody's fault, really. It's the way that culturally we've established things and culturally what we've we've been told how we should conduct ourselves. Don't trouble anyone, don't bother anyone. So these people that come from this kind of cultural background, they don't want to trouble or bother anyone. Oh, it's just a little scratch. When it's cellulitis going, it's going to go to their heart and kill them. It's just a little red line. That's a cultural thing. And then you're pushed up against, I feel like the major restraints on the medical side of the fence end up being reimbursement models. And we can really because that the reimbursement model is what dictates the plan of care. It currently in the United States, in Switzerland, it's different because it's a little more clear. You pay for this service and this is what you get. And it's always the same. It's not this weird changing, Moroccan spice market that is in the United States.
Yes. Interesting. Okay. So with that thought, because you brought it up organically, I'm going to read some statistics and then we can talk about where the U.S. is stacking up against these numbers, or where, say, other developed countries are stacking up against this. Right now, medical errors occur in an estimated 10 to 15% of hospitalizations worldwide. Okay. So one study reported that approximately 400,000 hospitalized patients experience some preventable harm each year, while another estimate was saying that greater than 200,000 patient deaths were annually due to preventable medical errors. So bottom line, in the US, medical errors are the third leading cause of death following heart disease, cancer, with an estimated 250,000 fatalities annually. I don't know what numbers you found. I did quite a different Google search and was getting different numbers from WHO, the NIH, et cetera. And that in a summary, they were the numbers that I came up with. So what are your thoughts on these? Do you see them increasing, decreasing? And where is the U.S. patient safety, the U.S., where are we stacking up now that you've been working abroad for quite a long time now?
Yeah. Feel like the numbers in the U.S. aren't that great. I found the same numbers you did. And for the amount of money that's spent in the United States versus those health outcomes that we get.
Yeah.
Here, they're understaffed just like they're elsewhere in the world. Everywhere in the world is understaffed. So this is an easy one to go, well, they're understaffed. Yeah, everyone's understaffed. The population in the United States is a large population. The population here in Switzerland is 9 million people. So it's that of LA County is population of Switzerland. So we don't have as many people, but we don't have enough to take care of everyone here. And what you see though is there is just a different way of handling things culturally here. I would say also in Germany, where there's a pause and there's an integrity of like really getting things precisely done and doing things and not they actually encourage people to share information. There's no blame or shame attached to a person when they make an error. So people are more forthcoming, like, hey, I made a mistake. Okay, let's fix it. That's the approach is different as opposed to like you made a mistake and then you get attacked in the United States. People don't want to talk about it. It's a litigious society and everyone's going to come after you. And it's, you're very much on the defense there. And here you're not. So we have the same problems everywhere in the world, right? So some developing nations might even have better healthcare than you see in the United States, right? I was in Costa Rica. You think Costa Rica, I'm not going to find a good doctor. Not only do you find a good doctor, but you can pay out-of-pocket cash for them, cost almost nothing, and get really great care. So I don't understand the problem in the United States. I'm not the professional to sit there and go, this is why. I feel like some of it is driven by, again, a reimbursement model where you're just told to rush. And these are people doing these jobs. Everyone behind those masks in those rooms with the gloves on and coming in to check on you, every single person working in the hospital, these are people. And if we humanize the experience a little bit more and we allow them a moment to step back and catch their breath, maybe they're not going to make all of those mistakes. And if we create a culture that is accepting of like, you made a mistake. How can I help you? Let's fix that. Let's change the mindset behind that. And I think that can drive better outcomes instead of like, we got to go. Next patient, go get your document done, go. And there's not even time to double check. Was there an error made? So this like go culture has maybe something to do with it. This is speculation, right? It's all speculation what we're talking about.
And I thought this would be a really great unbiased conversation because it's like a global problem. And so how do we empower ourselves and other people so these mistakes don't happen? How do we raise the bar so these things don't happen? Because we all get equally frustrated. Paula, I'm sure, I don't want to speak for you, but you can speak at this. It's like you as a practitioner, as a therapist, I as a perfusionist, when we hear problems at the bedside or with patients, we were like, what the heck? Like we feel just like, how did they get into this situation? The states are good at fixing problems, but I feel like everyone else is good at preventing them. I feel like we fall short with preventative. We can fix the problems, but let's not have the problems.
Yeah. So the United States, and I too, our horn here in Switzerland, I go, we in the United States have some of the best trained healthcare professionals in the world, period. I need a hip surgery. I'm flying back to Los Angeles and I'm getting it done there. I'm not doing it here. That's how much regard I have for the professionals in the United States. The physicians and the supporting staff are amazing. Here in Switzerland, sometimes they're good, sometimes they're not so good. Sometimes things feel like they're 30 years behind, and sometimes they feel current. And it just depends on what it is we're talking about here. So
exactly.
It's very, very interesting. I like to use an analogy. When it comes to our healthcare and our health in the United States, we put more care and attention with our luggage at the airport and finding things and tracking it down and it getting to where it needs to be than we do with us in the country. That's sad to me. You can find
sad to me too,
but you can't find the right doctor,
Yeah. I still go through that finding a doctor. I leave practices, look for new practices. Good practices are full. You can't get in. My doctor is amazing. I said, I have someone who wants to see you. She says, my office manager says, no more. I can't see. And a lot of her patients are medical professional. She's amazing. But she's like, I can't take any more patients. My office manager said, under no circumstances, I can't even treat the people that I have. I'm like, but you're wonderful. She goes, I would like to treat everybody, but I got a hard no that I'm not allowed. And see, so doctors, she's like, I'm not allowed. They said I cannot take any more patients on. So there you go. We've got like good doctors, no availability, questionable doctors. It's a shame. Like we're living in this cycle of, and then we end up with these numbers, so.
Yeah. If I was going to tap to a patient right now, and if a patient was sitting in front of me right now and asking me for advice. So if a patient was going to say, I need to find a doctor. We've spoken, like maybe you need to see another doctor about this. Okay, where do I find this doctor? To empower this patient, first of all, I tell them there's nothing wrong getting another opinion. There's nothing wrong going to see another doctor ever. And doctors don't care if you go get a second opinion. There's no animosity from the doctor's side. So I think if patients knew that, if the general public knew that the doctors, they don't care. They're so busy. They don't care. They're like, yeah, go ahead, get another opinion. It's fine. Maybe I missed something. It's okay. There's no harm there. So first, don't worry about the feelings.
Yeah, you're not bothering them.
Let's focus on you. What do you need to get better? You need to find a doctor that's in your that's covered by your insurance. So the best place to go is to your insurance company to see who's in network. If you have like a PPO plan or you have a plan where you can go outside of that network, then you've got more opportunity. You can go and speak. Like I might have a recommendation as a physical therapist. I usually do. So it depends. Like, oh, you need a GP. You need a gynecologist. Do you need a orthopedist? Do you need a rheumatologist? I have all of those contacts. PTs, we know a lot of doctors. We have dialogues with lots of doctors. We know the outcomes of all of those surgeries. So do you need a surgery? Oh, you went to go see that doctor. They said you needed a surgery. Yeah, I wouldn't go there. That guy just likes to cut. He doesn't ever recommend physical therapy. He didn't say physical therapy, did he? No, he didn't. There is a process in play, but we know all of the outcomes. We see all of the post-surgical outcomes, every single one of them. We see who the good guys are, who the bad guys are. Same guys, but it could be women as well, right? It could be anybody.
Absolutely.
We know who the good surgeons are. We know who the good rheumatologists are. We know who the good psychotherapists are. We know who the good gynecologists are because we hear from everybody. We have a of all the local population. We see the outcomes, we hear people talking about it, and we hear when somebody's like, oh my God, I just had the most amazing experience with my doctor. I'm like, tell me more. What happened? Who's the doctor? Give me their phone number. And I always I just listen. This is what we do, right? Healthcare professionals, half of what we do is listen. So, and this is one of the things I tell my patients. If your doctor isn't listening to you, then go find another doctor. There's nothing wrong with it.
And you know what, Paula, anecdotally, I ask around in the OR, I say, how do you feel? I just off the cuff. And, when I'm in and out of the OR, no matter what I'll ask a cardiologist or I'm like, how do you feel if somebody wants a second opinion? Oh yeah, great. And then somebody elaborated and said, I actually like that because then they feel good about the decision. If they question and then they go seek a second opinion, I feel good. I don't want them to be uncertain about me. So I feel if people knew that they actually want you to feel good about them. They don't want you. Well, okay, let me pull that back a little bit. Not all of them, because I do work with some arrogant, I've got special words for some of them. They know how I feel. However, let's just say
they're probably amazing surgeons. So
yes, they are. I have to say, I always say I don't have to like you, but you will operate on somebody in my family because I know they'll get the job done. They don't always have the best side manner because they are busy and they're booked 6 months out for a reason. But I would say I don't have to like you, but I do like your outcomes. And I like working with you because you make good judgment calls.
That's the best point right there. It's about their outcomes. So if their outcomes are stellar, that's the doctor you want. You want to go with the one with the best outcomes, period.
We all say, I'm like, I don't need the nicest guy in the room. When I'm looking for doctors for my father just had a health issue, even with family, I'm like, they'll say, oh, stop. My mom, sorry, mom, because she listens to all my podcasts. She'll say, oh, they're so nice. I'm like, okay, that's great. But that's not my concern. I need to know. And then I look at their training. I'll look at, because that tells you a lot about their philosophy. So if you're looking for a doctor, I always say, where did they go to school? Where did they do their fellowship? Where they do their residency? Because then I can wrap my head around. I know the hospital. If I don't know the system, I can say, well, okay, this is the way they're going to approach the situation. Without even knowing the doctor, you can know pretty much if they work at a certain institution, how they might handle things. Yeah. Not always. Yeah, but I feel like it's true. And then, so I say, that's great that they're nice, but that's not important for me right now. So I know, and you made a really good point about people wanting to be polite. And we're trying to stretch home that don't be afraid that they want you to make, they want you to feel good about the decision and, ask. And this is another thing too. So you talked a little bit about insurance. So I'm glad you touched upon that. So now insurance is not covering second opinions. I do have a problem with that. I saw a social media post about that. I feel like that's ridiculous, but what do I know? I'm on the other side of the lens.
Enough about that because I don't know if that's insurance policy dependent, if somebody's in an HMO, if they have a PPO. I don't know enough about it, but I will say this. If you have to pay out of pocket for one doctor visit in the United States and you have the means to pay for it, I should qualify the statement because not everybody has the means to go and get a second opinion and pay out of pocket for it. That's a very privileged statement I just made. So I want to acknowledge that. If you have the opportunity and the finances and or coverage to go get a second opinion necessary, which by the way, the numbers on that are quite high, right?
Agree.
I have to look for it somewhere, but I pulled up numbers on this, but like the numbers of like procedures and misdiagnosis and unnecessary surgeries, these numbers are higher than you think. It's not like some random uncle 40 years ago had the wrong surgery. Like I see it in the clinic all the time. Unnecessary surgeries, sometimes multiple surgeries. I see botched surgeries. And at that point, it's too late. It's already done. As soon as somebody goes under the knife, and remember that if you have to go and have surgery, once they cut you open, that's it. Everything changes. All those structures change. So you want to do everything in your power to not have surgery first, especially if we're talking orthopedic injuries, right? So we're talking joints and muscles and things like that. You want to maybe exhaust everything first. Because even if you did need surgery at the end of that, you go in having tried everything, probably a whole heck of a lot stronger, and you're prepared to go into that surgery and your outcome will be better. So if you just go in and you're weak and you haven't tried to rehab a little bit before you have the surgery, then, the healing rate's going to be a little bit longer. There are benefits to starting all of this before. But if you don't even need the surgery, then why get it?
I'm with you. And you know what's funny? You were talking about, I don't know if this is the number that you were looking for, but it's along those lines. It said there was another numerous numbers, but it's about 20% of cases. Studies show that a second opinion can lead to a difference of diagnosis or treatment, a treatment plan in up to 20% of those cases.
I have a very relaxed atmosphere at the clinic. I have people ask me all sorts of questions. So physical therapists, we see people multiple times over a very long period of time. So we really get to know these people. They start to get very comfortable with us, but not at the beginning. The beginning, right. They don't tell us. And I'm like a private investigator. I'm just drilling them with questions and questions. And they're like, "Whoa, you ask so many questions." I'm like, I need to know your story. I need to know what's really wrong with you, what your goals are, how you hurt yourself. Like, did you hurt yourself before? I want to know everything about you. And I create this comfortable atmosphere. And then they start asking me the real questions, the things that really scare them, or they might feel embarrassed to ask even their doctor. I'm like, this is what you have to tell your doctor. So
we don't care really about, the backstory is helpful, but we're not judging, right? So we just need to know, like, what you're doing.
We have heard everything, by the way. We have seen and heard everything to the craziest things. Anyone who works in the medical profession has the crazy stories. Let's use like a UTI as a great example, a urinary tract infection. If you look at like UTIs, the number one reason why people get UTIs, like women get UTIs, it's related to sex. And then there's shame behind that. And, like we're like, oh, something's wrong with me. I don't want to tell my doctor that I had sex with it's like, tell your doctor. I had sex and I didn't go to the bathroom. I fell asleep. I have a UTI. I have some symptoms. And the doctor's going to go, yep, here you go. So if there's not going to be any judgment or shame behind that, but yet sometimes we're like, is it? Should I try all this stuff? Oh, maybe it's not. And then there's just judgment and shame. And I feel like this is really like if we could just crack that nut open and just let people relax a little bit, they go into the doctor. I mean, this is why I teach so much breath work now. It's like, look, you can control how you feel very quickly. Let's do a breath exercise. Do this before you go and do this. Just kind of creating this different mindset of how you approach your healthcare, because ultimately, who is responsible for you are. You are responsible for your own health. You are ultimately responsible for that. So we take ownership of our responsibility, but then also we let go of the shame that's attached to like behavior that led us to that moment that we had to go see that doctor. There is nothing to be ashamed about. There's nothing to be embarrassed about.
No, that's a great point. And then also when you're honest and forthcoming too, that also prevents mistakes. That's part of the communication. So if we know things, then we can treat you appropriately and we don't miss something. So
if your listeners and your viewers know or had the experience of having a surgery before. So if you go in, let's give an example. You're going in for a knee surgery. You have to sign the leg that's being operated on with your doctor before they administer drugs. You're signing your leg, going, yep, that's my knee. Yep, it's this side. And everyone's marking it and signing it. And they do that because it reduced errors. People had the wrong leg operated on.
And that still happens. I'm like, it's still happening. Yes. I'm like, how is that happening in this day and age? But it's happening.
And that's why I think self-advocacy and patient advocacy becomes very important, because it can help reduce some of the errors. If you're going in for a procedure, bring a family member, especially if you have a family member that is worked in healthcare and knows the system, bring them with you. They're going to be your best advocate you could ever have in that moment. If you have to go and do something by yourself, which happens, we have technology now where you can record things, record your session. Just ask, is it okay if I record this? Because what happens when you go to the doctor and you're by yourself and you hear something like, you need surgery? Then the patient is either going to freak out, oh my God, I need surgery, oh my God, or they're going to try to keep their cool and not hear anything the doctor's saying. They're just going to hear that Charlie Brown. That's all they're hearing. And they're going, uh-huh. They're just trying to calm down and they've missed everything. So the first thing to do is go, is it okay if I record this so I remember everything you tell me? Because most likely the doctor did say a lot of things in that meeting that most people forget. So it's okay to record. I had to tell patients, you can record everything. You want to record this? You want to record your exercises? You want to video this?
No, that's a great tip. Like, that's a really great piece of advice and actually keeps everybody honest. Yeah.
Most of the time they tell you everything in that moment, it's just, we won't hear it because I think about, like, for us, we work in healthcare. So if we heard like we had to have surgery, we'd be like, okay, well, when is that going to happen? We're probably like ready to take notes, unless it was like a terminal diagnosis. And I don't know anybody who could receive a diagnosis that's terminal and just keep their cool. I don't know a single person. So like, they're not going to remember much, or they might be hyper aware and be aware of like how everybody's responding around them. It just depends on the situation. So always bring somebody with you, but record that conversation and ask for permission to record it, because the doctor is going to say, yeah. There's no reason to say no.
I think that's a great tool. And it helps your loved ones too, because I would guarantee, I'm pretty sure there's someone in your life who does care, if they can't be there, they'd want to know, and they'd be upset if you didn't tell them. I know a lot of older patients want to hide things, or people don't want to burden their family or friends, but I can tell you, that's probably not the response you'll get if you ask somebody to go with you. I love helping people. I get calls. I mean, all kinds, even people I haven't talked to I'll say, sure, what do you need? Like, they're like, hey, you're the first person. I said, no problem. Like, give me the big picture, and we love doing those things. So
helpers, we love it. Yeah.
We are naturally helpers. We've been in help. Listen, if we haven't left yet, I always say I might not be the best with my car or money, but I do know I know your heart, and I know,
to be good with our cars or our money. So
that's true.
That's not your fault.
You're right.
We accept responsibility for the things we should. And when we're not given the tools or the opportunity to learn something, that's not our fault.
Thank you, Paula.
I'm going to pull on that thread even more, because you and I both work in healthcare, right? Most people don't learn about their bodies. They know nothing about how their bodies work. They don't know anatomy. They don't know physiology, which is the function behind the form of anatomy. Most people don't even know that. And if you knew more about your body, feel that it should be essential that everyone knows how their body works, just like they know how to add and read and do other things in school. And it really breaks my heart that almost most people don't understand how their bodies work. And our bodies are truly amazing in how they're designed. They're truly pieces of art. It's nobody's fault. So I'm hoping that through our education efforts, yours, mine, other people's, that we're able to kind of change the dialogue, change the knowledge, change the mindset so that people can live better lives, right? This is our goal. We just want people to live better because we know there's a better way. I demand a lot out of my doctors because I know so much that I know. And so I come in Switzerland, I'm more difficult because I come in with research from the United States. Usually if I go to the doctor here, it's because I'm going to the gynecologist and I'm usually need to change something with my hormone replacement therapy because, as you know, this is like not an exact science and we're just finally doing research on women's bodies and we're finally getting more information about this. And it's just this blossoming area of science and medicine that is so necessary. I go in and I come in with like research articles and I'm ready to and my doctor now knows, like, we're going to have a discussion and we're going to go deep into an intellectual discussion about the current literature on testosterone therapy in women or estrogen and its effect on inflammation. And we're going to go deep. And then we geek out on it together. So now she's like, yeah, she's excited because we talk about it at a different level. But wouldn't it be great if everybody could go in and speak to their doctors like that at a common level and nobody feels spoken down to or you have to dumb anything down? Like, we can just have a dialogue that we're like, hey, I read this research article. It's in English, but I'll send you the link. You can use Google Translate if you want to put it in French or German or whatever language. And they're like, my doctor's like, yeah, I read that article. I'm like, so then we have this discussion about the literature. So, and I'm not talking about a New York Times article or something like that. I'm talking about PubMed. You go and you get the research article.
Yes. But you brought up a really good point is that treat your doctor's appointment. Like, even when I go to a new doctor, I have questions. So when you go in advance, be prepared a little bit. Do empower yourself a little bit. So when you do go in there, you can have these conversations because it does help. I will say when a doctor or whoever you're seeing knows that, oh, she did her homework or he did her homework or things like that. Like, it does change the narrative of the conversation.
Well, I found this interesting. Do you think this is something we should try? That is a great starting place. Like, I guess it's how you approach what it is that you bring. So like, research is great. Research is always for the person, for the patient. Okay. So when you do your own research, it's just for you. It's not for the doctor, but you can have the dialogue with the doctor. It is a way to kind of see if the doctor is up to date on current literature or are they stuck in the past? So this is a nice litmus test, but it's also a great discussion to have with your doctor. So, and sometimes they're going to be like, oh, if you like that, then they're going to start rattling off all this other research. You're like, wait, what? Hold on, let me notes. And that's also approach. Like, I read this, you should give this to me. It's like, hold on, we should have a discussion around that. Approach it as a discussion, really, is maybe the gist of what we're getting at here, which is research always helps you as the individual feel good about the knowledge that whatever it is you're about to enter into. Menopause and perimenopause is a great subject to talk about because when you are entering in, now we're going to isolate half the audience here, but like for women, when you're going through these changes and it's confusing and we don't know what's going on and your first symptom is not what you think it is, as you and I both know, it goes to something very different. You're confused by things. Then you start reading up on things. You need to read about perimenopause. You need to read about menopause. There's great books out there now that are being written, like New Menopause, which is a fantastic book. It's a great resource for women to go to. And there's several others coming out. There's like more and more stuff coming out on this. This is fantastic. And now you have an opportunity to read up on it and go, oh my God, there's all of these symptoms here. Wait, I didn't even know half these symptoms were symptoms I could have. I've had half.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. And I feel like, again, I don't have any data on this. I didn't look it up, but I do believe that women sometimes get a little bit more dismissed when it comes to certain health issues than men. I don't know the number. I can't give you a number from anecdotally from patients, from me being a patient, just from my knowledge, like I said, anecdotally. So I do believe that, again, we're speaking to the women, especially midlife, is that what Paula said. Well, one, the good thing is that being of a certain age, then some very influential women are now going through the same things.
Dr. Mary Claire Haver, you've got Halle Berry, very vocal about it. You've got Dr. Kelly Casperson. You've got Dr. Rachel Rubin. You've got all these awesome doctors that are out there so vocal, and they're writing the books and some of them are doing the actual research, like Dr. Lisa Mosconi. And she is like, for me, I have put her on a pedestal. So what she's done is amazing. She's a neuroscientist and she's studied the effect of estrogen on the brain. And she has led a lot of the research. And her book was the first book I read when I was going through perimenopause and wasn't aware I was going through perimenopause. But it drove a lot of the decision-making processes at the time to empower me when I started realizing that I was going through perimenopause. But this was 10 years ago. So we didn't know that much, right? So 10 years ago, I read the XX Brain and I was like, I should get tested for the breast cancer genes because it looks like the sooner I start hormone replacement therapy, the better it is for me. That's what I'm getting from this book. And it turns out, absolutely, that's what the research has been saying all along. You know, like there are things that you can do as you start to read. These are books that anybody can go and read right now. You can go out there and read. And they have updated versions of these books and more books that they've come out with. So there's a lot of information out there. I do have statistics for you. I did find some statistics. So there's when it comes to medical misdiagnosis for women versus men. So this is women and also people of color, especially women of color.
Interesting.
That women and people of color are disproportionately affected by medical misdiagnosis, with studies indicating there's a 20 to 30% more likelihood this misdiagnosis happening to women and people of color than that of white men. So there's bias happening there. And that this is even more so with women that are also people of color and women. They are often dismissed. The breast cancer diagnosis happens. So like when you look at Black women, they are often dismissed more, and their diagnosis process for breast cancer takes twice as long. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. And time is critical in these moments, right? There's all these different biases that happens. Absolutely. So when it comes to women and people of color, there are different things. And like, so women in general, so like heart attacks are often misdiagnosed for women. If the medical professional isn't trained, that the symptoms can be different in women than men. So this can be missed. And that's just because of gender. So there are gender differences, It's in the neuroscience, it's in our bodies, it's how it presents, there's differences. So, and these disparities create problems, create misdiagnosis, medical errors, and this results in, sometimes a more significant outcome in terms of what the diagnosis is or the treatment. It can cost more, it could be more invasive, or it can result in death. If you're talking about cancer or heart attacks, then this is where we start to get those numbers. I think the global numbers were around 3 million people a year die because of medical errors globally. So 3 million, it's pretty high.
Well, we talked about a lot today. And I hope, it was a great conversation. I feel like we covered the numbers, why, how to approach your doctor, how to go about this, right? Knowledge, information, talk, the power of community. We didn't talk about that, but I'm just going to mention, talking about this. I feel like my friends, it's funny. And I said this in another podcast, like we've all kind of had different roads in life. Like some had kids, some didn't, some are married and divorced. I've never been married, I'm not married, but the one thing we all have in common is aging and menopause. So it's like the thing of it is it's our body. So it's important to talk about these things. I feel like we are getting better, but clearly the data shows that we're still not communicating enough. But these conversations are showing that, and like you said, a lot of doctors that are now more vocal about these things. So things are, I want to say they're improving, but I don't have the numbers to back it up.
Yeah, I feel like we could have just a whole separate discussion just on menopause and perimenopause and like the ripple effect of like what the drop of estrogen does to your body from like a musculoskeletal standpoint, pain from your immune system, like how it affects every system in your body. So if you're a woman watching this and you're anywhere from like your late 30s or older and you're like, why do I feel so bad all of the time, all of a sudden? It's because you've had something called estrogen drop off, and it is a natural anti-inflammatory. And when you don't have it, everything starts to hurt and your inflammation goes up, and it has a huge ripple effect. So this is a discussion that I encourage everybody to have more.
Yeah.
It affects, if your partner is male and you've got a husband or boyfriend, or if your partner's female, it doesn't matter. Like your significant other, if they're noticing that there's changes in you and you're like, God, why are you so temperamental? Why are you so this? And there could be actually a reason behind that, especially if there's a few other symptoms going on with that. So like the more we know, the better we can kind of drive our own decisions behind that, right? It all goes back to education, awareness, and advocacy.
It does. And like you said, your body, trust your gut. If you think there's something wrong, chances are there probably is. I mean, I've sat across from doctors who given me bogus answers, and I went and found another one. Not that I was looking for somebody to agree with my narrative. I was looking for somebody that would listen and think outside the box. So there's a big difference. I didn't want someone to say, yes, you are right. I needed someone to say, yes, there is, you're making a lot of really good points. Let's investigate. There's a big difference of no to let's look into this further. Let's run more tests. Let's think outside the box. So that's what I think we're trying to get in, trusting your gut, doing all these appropriate things. But ultimately, you're in charge. Before we wrap, what would you say? I'm going to give you the floor. Is there something we didn't talk about that you think is worth discussing before we wrap it up? And how can people find you?
Don't be, I shouldn't say don't, but try not to judge anything. Try not to worry about what the person sitting across the desk is thinking of you. If you're going to see a doctor, treat it like you're talking to your best friend. Just share and share openly. And if you feel like you didn't get that moment to say what's really on your mind or bothering you, stop the doctor before they leave the room and go, wait, there's something else. Don't be scared to say that. I want to empower everyone to just feel safe to speak to these professionals as if they're your friend. Treat it like that. That might change everything for you. It really goes down to mindset. If you walk away with just that today, that's a really beautiful thing to walk away with. Where can you find me? I have a few places you can find me besides in Switzerland. You can find me online. So I have a website. It's not robust right now, but you can certainly reach out to me there, send me a message. I will be putting more information up there. It's drpaulapt.com. That's my web address. You can find me on Instagram, Dr. Paula Sauer. Sauer is spelled Sauer. You can find me on TikTok. You can find me on LinkedIn. I post a lot of free content. I have also a YouTube channel. If you do a search for Dr. Paula Sauer, physical therapy exercises, you'll see it pop up. Everything there is free. I really feel like I just want to make what I know accessible to as many people as possible. I also do some training. So if you want to dive in real deep with me, you can learn breathing techniques. I co-teach 50-hour breathing. It's a training. My co-teacher is this beautiful person who has studied tons and tons of different yoga and esoteric breathwork styles, and I come in with the science side of it and kind of weave it into a therapeutic setting. It's a really beautiful balance of like science and the esoteric dialogue together. So we do that. We do a yoga teacher training together. So there's a lot of that. You could find all of that online. You can reach out to me in any one of those resources. And if you have a question, if you're like, I don't know how to navigate this, Paula, can you help me? Yeah, shoot me an email. If I can answer it, I will. So I am in Switzerland, so the time difference might play a role there, but I just want to help people. That's why I'm on this planet. That's why I feel like I'm here. So that's all I want to end with.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I found you. It was a really organic happenstance, and I'm going to continue. Now, you've got a friend in New York, so we're going to continue this. Maybe I'll have you on it. Yes, absolutely. So, okay, I know it's late there, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap this. That is a wrap for today's episode of Second Opinion. I hope this conversation gave you a fresh perspective on the power of questioning the first answer. When it comes to your health, knowledge is power, and sometimes asking for a second opinion can be the key to unlocking better outcomes, more confidence, and peace of mind. If you found today's episode helpful or thought-provoking, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It not only helps others find the show, but it helps us bring you more conversations that really matter. If you have a topic that you'd love for us to cover, reach out. We're always looking for new ideas that challenge assumptions and spark smarter decisions around health and wellness. Until next time, I'm Rosemarie Beltz. Stay curious, stay informed, and never be afraid to ask for a second opinion.